Hey everyone, and welcome to a Builders and Visionaries podcast where what gets built meets who makes it happen. Today we're really lucky to have one of our close friends, John Redmond, COO and co-founder at Inspect IR, here in the house with us today. You can see that we're actually in the studio, so it's nice whenever we can get people in person. So thanks for coming out today.
Thanks for having me. Looking
Yeah, for
forward to it.
sure. So this is a podcast where we talk about what people are building. We keep it under 10, 15 minutes long. So I start out every single podcast with the same question. So what are you guys building or enabling right now in the marketplace?
So we are building essentially a chemistry lab in a box.
Okay.
And so my new fancy word is we are democratizing mass spectrometry. So really fancy word for if you've ever watched the CSI. It's the great big benchtop instrument that like you put something in one side and it spits out all the squiggly lines on the other. Mass spec has the ability to tell what compounds or chemistry is present, whether it's a gas or in liquid form. And so we have a version of that that is mobile and portable.
Okay.
And so we're able to essentially tell people what's happening in near real time with laboratory accuracy, but without the lab.
Okay. So talk about some of the things that you guys are testing for.
Yeah, so what we were kind of known for and kind of where we made our big splash was we took that logic, that instrumentation, and our patents are in the breath-based space.
Mhm.
So if you think of, I don't want to be gross, but if you think of all of the lab samples that are present today, obviously blood is the gold standard, but breath and breath-based diagnostics is coming, kind of online, and we're leading in that effort. And so during COVID, we actually are able to determine if an individual has COVID in less than 3 minutes based on a breath sample.
Incredible. What are
Yeah.
you guys focused on right now, though?
So taking that same logic and we're now applying it to drugs and intoxication. So whether that is a legal prescription or over-the-counter drug, or whether that's an illicit substance like, well, in some states, cannabis or opiates.
Very good. So are you guys testing for like fentanyl and stuff like that?
Fentanyl, methamphetamine, PCP, like I said, cannabis, like those are kind of the bad things we want to be able to tell. There's also part of the conversation that would tell you that, like, if you're a kind of a legal drug dealer, so if you're a doctor that's in pain management,
Mhm.
you are less concerned that people are taking their drugs versus not taking. It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is, like, I don't want you not taking your fentanyl or your oxy and then like selling it or having your kids sell it,
For
right?
sure.
Because that's really where the prescription drug problem is coming from, is like people that have legal means and access
Uh-huh.
to drugs, and then people are
Just
doing
reselling it.
nefarious things with it, right?
Interesting. Okay. What trend or tool are you seeing that's changing the game right now?
Well, I'm hoping it's going to be us, right?
I love it.
Whenever I have an AI question, I call you. And
Yeah.
so, for me, I can tell you when we were developing our algorithm,
Uh-huh.
we didn't talk about AI, we talked about machine learning,
Yeah.
which obviously is a part of that.
Right.
But I know that AI is going to become really, really important for us and others, as not only the instruments become smarter and learn, but also have kind of that predictive capability,
Mhm.
which is going to be, like I said, really, really important. Is like the bad guys get smarter
Yeah.
and try and figure out, like, hey, how can my recipe for this particular drug class be different than your recipe based on what I have access and available? But the tools themselves aren't standard, right?
Mhm.
It's like there's a record that says, this is a barbiturate, and as long as it's inside of, whatever that box is, then it's going to register barbiturate. We need something that's smart enough to say, ooh, it's got all of the hallmarks and categories that would say this is a barbiturate, but it isn't,
Mhm.
right? So that's where we're gonna go.
One thing that I found really interesting is the fact that you guys are doing what it takes entire labs to do
Mm-hmm.
mobily,
Mm-hmm.
right? So talk about that aspect of the business. Like, is that something that's very forward thinking in terms of taking an entire lab, like, take LabCorp, for example,
Yeah.
right? Like they can do tests, but you guys are making a mobile.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a couple different aspects of that you could talk through,
Yeah.
right? Is part of it is the convenience or inconvenience of leveraging a benchtop instrument, right? That means you have to have an appointment, you have to go to physically where they are.
Right.
But there are going to be things that, like I used the word democratization earlier, right? We want to be able to take some of that out into the field and give you the equivalent of a lab without the inconvenience and expense of having, obviously that whole
A brick and
facility and
mortar,
setup.
yeah.
Yeah. The other piece of that too is there's you can screen and you can test. And people want to think of them as being very different, but the reality is like screening and diagnostics kind of go hand in hand, right? What we discovered in the COVID era is like it doesn't take like the big fancy test and suck the stick all the way into your brain to figure out that you're healthy, right?
Yeah.
The reality is like if the prevalence of COVID is 2%, that means 98 out of 100 people are being inconvenienced with a very expensive test. When I can screen everybody and with 92% accuracy, I can tell you that you people can go and you 8 people need to go ahead and get like the big fancy test. So, 2 of those 8 will identify, and unfortunately for 6 people, right? But 6 sounds a whole lot better than, 98.
For sure. Talk to me about you putting dogs out of jobs.
Well, so our patent is on the breath side, but we also are leveraging through our technical and academic partners, we're leveraging another set of patents around basically it's a different kind of screening perspective, which allows us to take environmental air and do something very similar. So instead of blowing into the instrument and telling you that there's fentanyl there, I can basically use a pump and a wand, and I can basically wave over, a backpack, a suitcase, luggage, etc., mail, and I can tell you that there's fentanyl present. So the reality is most of the tools that law enforcement is using are our canine friends. The canines in the example of fentanyl, like it's not really good for them, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And it's not good for their handlers, right? So if there's something that we can do that's portable, mobile, man-packable, that creates some ease on our canine friends, then that's what we want to do.
I say that in jest. Let's keep the dogs safe. Let's keep the dogs safe.
Yeah.
So you guys have been at this for a while. Where do things get stuck? And what are you guys doing to kind of move things forward?
Well, we're doing conversations like this. We are attempting to have conversations with the Border Patrol and their laboratory folks. So the people that their smart people are talking to our smart people, and like they're kind of having this kumbaya moment where it's like, hey, we don't have drug interdiction technology like this available. There are other tools that are in the market space. But I think it takes, again, my earlier comment, right? It takes innovators, people that are outside of the space, to ask questions that aren't being asked, to land in a different place. The other side of it is, quite frankly, it's our government officials, right?
Yeah.
We're imploring upon not only like our local representatives, but also our state and federal representatives to, take this on, because, it makes for nice sound bites. It makes for really good campaign conversation. But the net is like, we really want to understand how this problem, this issue coming from across our border is a national security issue, as well as a local enforcement issue.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing everything that you can to make sure that everybody's safe in their space. How can people find you if they want to learn more?
I think the most obvious part is, you can go to inspect-ir.com. So that's our website. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. In a former life, I was a human capital consultant and a TA guy. So, I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. So if people are interested in connecting with me, please reach out. But, getting, again, more smart people to understand and ask questions and understand what it is we're trying to do is where the conversation is going.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.